So, John, we're here at DevOpsDays Raleigh. It's good to see you.
Hey.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I've missed you.
Yeah, me too.
Good Lord,
We've had some great conversations about your conference.
Right.
And you know I'm a big fan of your conference. So what you've done, what you've accomplished is, I admire the extent how hard it is to build a quality conference. You know,
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
it is. It's not an easy thing to do. I think sometimes from the outside looking in, how hard could it be?
Yeah, no.
You kind of invite some speakers,
try it.
you get a venue. You put together a schedule, and then people just show up, right?
Right, yeah.
That's not the way it works at all, right?
It's I've got you and then some other buddies too, and it's just, I've seen the, like how the sausage has been made. Right?
Yes.
So,
sometimes it's not pretty. So tell us about you, John. We're very familiar with you.
Yeah.
I know you as a co-author of the DevOps Handbook. I think you're quasi-famous for that. A lot of people have read that book. I think it's fantastic. You've worked with Docker. I know you were an evangelist with Docker. You've worked for many other companies. You've been in the space for 40 or so years.
40. You round down when you get to my age, right? So 40. It's getting close. I think 45, if I'm going to be accurate. Sort of just always sort of looking for I try to catch waves, and Docker was a really interesting wave. I created a networking company, sold it to Docker. After that, I've done, dabbled around in a couple of things. One of the things I got really interested in, which was what we were calling DevOps automated governance. Like, how could we build immutable attestations in the pipeline for audit, to reduce audit, And we created a book out of that called Investments Unlimited, so that was kind of fun. And then a book I'd been working on for basically 10 years about Dr. Deming, Edward Deming, and I finished that late last year, and the physical, the paperback version came out in January. So that's been just a big part of my life. And but the most recent thing is, when I was getting near, it was like basically 2020. I was working on the book, and a friend of mine showed me, Mark Hinkle, who's a close friend.
Yes, absolutely.
He showed me some early implementations of GPT-3, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be great for research, And I sort of dug in, I realized it was terrible for research, right? That it only knew the information that was in the corpus of the large models, and so I learned enough to know that it was useless for my purposes. And then 3.5 came out. Tried it again, nothing new. ChatGPT came out. Honestly, I saw it as a magic 8-ball. When will I get rich? When will I get married? Right? But when this idea of what they call the RAG, retrieval augmented generation, or particularly a form of it is called vector databases, and that's where you can start loading in your own data and get all the power that you get with like a ChatGPT or these what we call foundational model, frontier models.
Right.
And then I was all in. So for about 18 months now, I've been very deep into learning this stuff. And I use my book, my Deming book, as the corpus of data to validate how these things work. Because I knew my book, I knew the data. So I could tell, if you've heard the concept of hallucinations, I could tell when it was hallucinating, how correct it was. And it taught me a lot about the data ingestion to this process. But what I think the thing I started worrying me, my DevOps hat came back on, which was the messiness of all this stuff to make your own LLM, and the libraries, and and they aren't the kind of libraries like a Java. These are like libraries that are written by PhD students that no longer work on the code. The dependency map of sort of the Python sort of AI libraries is incredibly complex. And then the tools that are built around, and they're great tools, open source, like LangChain and all these things, they're incredibly complex. And I realize this is going to be a burden for the DevOps people. We're going to inherit, when a company goes out and it's going to basically just throw in a chatbot here and an LLM here and Workday or PagerDuty or all these products going to throw in, and then the business unit's going to create their own stuff. It's going to be a minefield. Maybe think about the shadow AI problem, or shadow IT problem. This is going to be a shadow AI problem. And what's going to be even worse is, I would say it's going to be 3 orders of magnitude more complex than cloud computing.
Wow.
Because it's non-deterministic. Right. With cloud, we were sysadmins. We had this blip of what is this cloud thing, And then we realized, oh, it's just network compute storage. And we acclimated to it.
Right.
We're not going to acclimate. Our skill sets are not designed for this AI stuff. And so I'm really trying to focus a lot on building workshops, education. We're all in it to make, we can't work for free.
Right.
But I'm really more interested in the overall, how do we train DevOps people as fast as we can to become knowledgeable before you get hit with, I'm calling this technical debt tsunami that's coming down the pike. So that's why I've been having a lot of fun running workshops. So here at DevOpsDays Raleigh, I'm running a workshop on Generative AI and DevOps tomorrow.
Right.
And having a blast. Having a blast.
I was just going to ask you what you're currently working on,
Yeah.
but I knew that would segue into your presentation here.
Yeah.
So what are, I guess, the highlights? Maybe some highlights of your talk, or maybe some, journalistically speaking, some pull quotes?
Yeah, so the thing that, so I've been thinking a lot about, what is all this stuff that I've been, because like I said, I was building all this stuff, and I was starting to think, how am I going to maintain my own stuff, and some of these open source projects are so brittle. I'll have code that's been working for 2 months, try to run it on a Monday, and it breaks. And then I'll by the time I even get around to try, and it's not, I run more training and education stuff, so it's not business critical stuff. So I'll look at it tomorrow, and then when I look at it tomorrow, it's already been fixed.
Right.
But the point is, that's the nature of these things, right? And the idea that I really sort of found is this whole idea of taking your, remember I said earlier why I got interested in these vector databases. So I can load in lots of corpus of data, like research papers or stuff that I want to what if I took all the research papers on a particular subject and put it in this vector database? I could learn on steroids because I can use the natural language questions. What I realized is that whole process of ingestion is much more complicated than it seems. People think they can just take a PDF, and you can, and go into Claude, load a PDF, and bang, you get some answers.
Right.
But what if the answers to the questions are a matter of life and death? What if the wrong answer could create brand reputation or serious damage, right?
Sure.
Well then, just like software, with software, we've learned a lot over the last 10, 20, 30 years, which is we don't just take software and slam it into production. Well, if you're going to if you're going to build your own corpus data in a large corporation where it's high consequence answers, you got to go through a similar process of engineering, like you would software. Right. You'll engineer your data. And so my workshop is very much a training ground for making trade-offs of maybe some data is, for example, if the chatbot you're building is a corporate headquarters, where's the best place to go to lunch?
Right.
Just slam it in. You don't have to do a whole lot of data engineering, right? And if the answers are the wrong place or the wrong block, nobody dies.
Right. Yeah.
But if the answer is that a friend of mine is working on a project where they're building it for Con Edison, California, where the guys climb up on poles, and we know how dangerous that is. Multi-language LLMs. Those answers could kill somebody.
Right.
Right? So now you really have to spend a lot of time engineering your data. And it includes very similar, testing, running evaluations, red teaming the questions, the answers, so turn it up to a small, almost like dark launches. So once I've built this LLM that has high consequence answers, instead of just turning it off to everybody, let's turn it up to a small group. Right. And let them say, get feedback, hey, this is answering, this is not the right answer, or it's answering great, and then open it up for sort of another, larger group, and then so there's just a lot more to this ingestion problem and opportunity.
Right.
And so that's my workshop. My workshop walks you through the tools to evaluate the similarities of your questions, to evaluate the answers, to sort of trace the correctness. There's a term that they're calling hallucination management. So it's me. I sort of dive way too deep, and and so I think people appreciate the workshop.
Right.
So.
Hey, this is Todd with All Things Open. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. We've got a lot of new content coming we think you're going to be interested in. One final favor, be sure to go to allthingsopen.org, allthingsopen.org to see everything that we do. Back to the video.
What is maybe one or two things that our community they need to know about this?
Yeah.
Is it to, you really better prepare for this? Because, as you started, you said this is going to impact DevOps in a very big way, but something that would deliver value to the people listening to this.
I think we need to really, the messaging I'm trying to make is, don't let anybody convince you that this is not your job, right? Because, if we go through the history of cloud came in and the classic sysadmins, maybe early quote unquote DevOps folk didn't think or were told, don't worry about it. This is cloud. The business units don't need you anymore. And what happened? Right. Security, data breaches, leakage, and just SRE, everything, right, that is involved. And then data science, it was another sort of chief data officers, right? Oh, no, don't worry about it. CEO hired a chief data officer. They'll take care of all this ML ops or Hadoop and all this stuff.
Right.
What happened? It all came back to the CIO, right? So now what we have is a very similar thing going on here where companies are hiring chief AI officers. Oh, it's AI, it's different. This time it's really different. It's network, compute, and storage. Right, it's all coming back. So I think don't fall into the trap that we've seen this movie multiple times. You are most likely going to own this. When it comes down to who's protecting the fort, who's protecting the brand, who is it going to fall on? It's going to fall on our DevOps tribe, right? And so the thing I think is the most important thing is don't ignore it. Go in there, start building your own LLMs. Why? One, you'll be able to automate some really cool stuff. But two, you can go to the CIO and say, hey, I heard that HR is bringing in this new LLM. Can I ask them some questions about the stack? What's the orchestration? What orchestration level of tools are they using? What vector database are they using? Because in the end, what we don't want is in a year and a half from now, our organization to have 30 vector databases, 15 variations of our orchestration tool, unmanaged Python libraries, right? So I think what we have to do is we can't ignore this. We can't say it's just a fad. If we're being sort of diligent to what we do, which is we're the protectors. I don't sound like the Avengers, but we are, right? We're the people when the breaches happen.
Sure.
Log4j comes on us. Whether you're security, even if you're infrastructure DevOps, Log4j, I was writing a book when that happened. We had 10 sysadmins, literally, Disney and banks and all, and for a month, we had to put the book on hold.
Right.
And these were all DevOps people. Just don't ignore it. Don't let somebody convince you that it's not going to be part of your sort of responsibility. Because somebody's going to have to SRE it, somebody's going to have to support it, somebody's going to have to deal with vulnerabilities and breaches and leakages. So,
where can people learn more? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of clients. So good, sort of good shout out for my clients. I never did answer the first question, which I've put my shingle out as what I'm calling a fractional evangelist, because that's what I've done. I'm an evangelist, and I don't want to do any more startups. I'm too old, and so I found a couple of really interesting companies in the AI space to fit the DevOps narrative. And so MongoDB has a vector database. Right. So they're one of my clients. So I think I'm putting a lot of stuff out there. They've really accelerated their messaging around, and Mongo is a great sort of company in general in the enterprise.
Yeah, they are.
And they're spending a lot of time now helping these large enterprises understand AI and how it fits with the normal unstructured data. Right? And so going to MongoDB, Atlas Vector Search, you'll learn a ton. There's great examples. I'm also working with an open source tool by a company called Arize, Arize, and they have this Arize Phoenix, which is an open source evaluation tool. Okay. And what's interesting about observability in AI is not your classic Dynatrace honeycomb. Observability is what they call evaluations. And what evaluations are is about relevance. So when you're sort of having natural language prompts, it will sort of measure and monitor the correctness, the relevance, hallucinations, try to explain why you might be getting a hallucination. Right. So those become critical tools if it's high consequence answers. You can put that into the cycle of making changes, what was the relevance? Was it 80%? Did it decrease? Did it go up to 90%? So you monitor, instead of monitoring latency and storage and performance, you're monitoring sort of baseline of relevance, correctness, and minimal hallucinations. So those are my two primary clients right now.
Gotcha.
And, so
are you writing another book?
I am writing a book.
Generative AI, maybe?
Yeah, so my Deming book, which is called Deming's Journey to Profound Knowledge, which came out in January. I think I said earlier, I try to write it in like a Michael Lewis style. I'm not as good as writer as Michael Lewis, but I did an okay job. Right, yeah. But it has that storytelling narrative where
I know exactly who you're writing.
Where a physicist could read and enjoy it, and my mother-in-law could read and enjoy it. Right. So I figured out early on the next version, and I had so much fun writing that book. People tell me, "Oh, I'll never write another book." I love writing books. It's just research, and so I'm writing a book on the history of AI. And think about if Michael Lewis was going to write a book about the history of AI, and I'm already finding incredible stories of different, like the guys who created the first neural network. One of them was a homeless guy, and so like when you go looking for the great stories, so there's this great, like, you'll get to learn where AI come from, where it's done over the years, but then like in between is like these brilliant like human stories. So hopefully I'll have that done at the end of the year.
I was going to ask when the estimated maybe
the target would be to have it sort of code complete, if you will, by the end of the year.
Okay.
Hopefully have it, available early next year. So.
Well, we'll be sure to include all that information in the show notes too.
Thank
you. So, John, thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's really good to see you.
Always great to see you.
Yeah, I look forward to hosting you later this year at ATN.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to get back to speaking. You run a great conference.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Okay, cool.
It's wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, that's great.
Bye-bye.
All right.